Welcome to question 5. We'll go straight to the first part of question 5. We say summarize 5 demerits of grapevine communication. Demerits are like limitations or what we call disadvantages. So what is grapevine communication? Grapevine communication is that kind of communication that doesn't have a specific formula. Anybody can communicate to anyone in the organization. It's not like in upward or in downward or maybe in horizontal or diagonal, but in grapevine, all channels are used. So there are no specific rules as far as communication is concerned. Anyone can, when he feels free to communicate, he communicates with anybody at any level, at any time. So that is what we call grapevine communication. So what are some of the disadvantages of such kind of communication? Number 1, distortion. Distortion is a very common disadvantage with this kind of communication. Why? Sometimes you might be sent to go and report something to a certain group of people or to a certain department, and because of lack of procedures in terms of how communication is done, you get to see that someone goes and reports his own stuff or his own kind of. You add others and minus others, you minus and add new, or do it whatever you feel like it's supposed to be done. So in such kind of communication strategy, in such a kind of a communication strategy, then distortion is always a challenge or an issue. And then spread misinformation or rumor. Yes, with grapevine communication, rumors are always there. Rumors spread so fast. So at the end of the day, people become misinformed. People become aware of things that they're not supposed to be aware. Some things they are false things. So at the end of the day, that confusion is normally created. And then misunderstandings, yes, because of the lack of procedures in communication. Sometimes communication takes place anyhowly, and because of that, you get to see that even employees might be using wrong procedures or wrong ways of doing the communication, of which this can result into misunderstandings because of the issue or because of the fact that there is no formal way or a certain formula to do the communication. And then secrecy is impossible because anyone can communicate to anyone. Then that means when a secret has leaked, then it's no longer a secret because almost everybody will be able to know about it. So maintaining secrecy with this kind of communication is also impossible. Difficulty in controlling, yes. Since there are no rules to follow, since there are no communication lines to follow, then controlling such kind of communication that basically flows in grapevine communication becomes also an issue. That also becomes a disadvantage of this kind of communication. And the second part of question 5, which is 5B, give 5 tips that you could use when writing an official memo. So I think in our April 2022 past paper, we've talked about a memo, what we define the memo, and then they also gave parts of a memo if I'm not wrong. So now we want to have a look at the tips that you will use when writing a memo. Assume you're a manager, you're writing a memo to employees. What are some of the tips will you use when writing this memo? Number 1, language. Don't use informal language because a memo is a formal kind of communication. So the kind of language you use should always be formal. So don't use informal language. And then a memo should be brief. So because it's brief, then be concise. When you talk of being concise, go straight to the point to avoid unnecessary details. So be concise. And then professional tone, yes. How you put your language, how you phrase your statements, how you phrase your words. Be careful with it. Make sure you use a professional tone because a memo is an official kind of a letter. That's why they talked of official memo. And then proofread. It's normally good, not only even in a memo only, in any kind of a written communication that you make. Always proofread to ensure that it's free from errors, free from mistakes, free from abusive language, name it. So proofread. You can even have someone else to come and help you do the proofreading. And then keep your audience top of mind. Whom am I writing this memo to? You need to have that person in mind. What kind of a person is he? What kind of a person is she? So that now you can come up with or compose a message that will be suitable for that person. So these are some of the few tips that we have or that you use when writing an official memo. So that is 5B. On to 5C. And 5C says, describe 10 preparatory steps you will take to develop an effective speech. So you are a speaker, you are going to present a speech at a certain function. So what are the preparatory steps will you take in order for you to go and deliver the most effective kind of a speech? Define the purpose of that speech. Why are you going to give the speech? Are you going to educate people? Are you going to inform people? Or what is it? By having that that purpose in mind, then you will know how to compose that speech. Then also know your audience. Whom am I going to speak to? Who will benefit from my speech? Or who is the beneficiary of this speech of mine? So that you can know the kind of language that you use. If maybe you're going to speak to engineers, then you can use technical words. And if you're going to speak to illiterates, you know what kind of language to use. So know your audience. And then always gather your contents. Gather your potential content. Prepare earlier in advance. Don't start preparing on the day. Do it early enough. Have the message with you. Have the content with you, so that you keep on practicing with it, so that when the D-Day reaches, you are fully ready to go and do the presentation. And then also, apart from having the content, or apart from gathering the content, also outline the main points. By outlining the main points, that means you're not going to take too long doing the speech or too long doing the presentation, because too long people will get bored. You'll have what you call monotonous in the long run. So at the end of the day, the listener becomes tired because he feels, no, I've been listening from the past 1 hour up to now, this person is not yet finishing. So it's always good that when you're going to do a speech, have main points. You use the main points to do the presentation. And then where need be, prepare, visualize. Yes, when you're going to do the speech with a huge number of audience, or with a bigger audience, sometimes it's normally advisable to prepare, visualize, because when the people are many in a certain hall, they'll not be able to hear you. Sometimes you might, or to see, in fact, for the ones who are sitting at the back, so sometimes you might need to use projectors, sometimes you might need to use microphones and name it. So in case of such scenarios, prepare those visual aids promptly in time. And then keep it simple. Yes, a good speech is the one that is simple. Free from technical words, free from jargons, free from big vocabularies, but simple and clear language. That is also another preparatory step. And also, always begin with an interesting question or story. You need to plan for it. I want to go and begin with an interesting story or an interesting quote. Start looking for that quote as early as enough, because it's part of the preparations. So look for that quote that we're going to use introducing the speech. Look for that story that you're going to use too, so that you can be ready. And also anticipate questions and prepare answers. Yes, there are those people who normally love asking questions in any presentation. They don't want the speaker to speak and finish, but they want also to make clarifications, to ask questions, or anticipate the possible questions, plus the possible answers, and then you'll be good to go. Also acknowledge nerves. Yes, speaking in front of a huge number of people can never be easy. Sometimes it's very much contradicting. Sometimes you get what you get nerves, or you become afraid of the crowd, something like that. So acknowledge that nerves are there. And how do you deal with nerves? You only deal with nerves through practicing, of which that is also another preparatory. As you can see there, it's another preparatory step. So for you to avoid nerves, then you have to do what we call practice. You can even rehearse. Call a group of your friends, stand in front of them, do the presentation, give the speech, and see what they comment about it. So acknowledge nerves are there. The moment you acknowledge, then at least it's one way of dealing with them. And also another way of dealing with them, do the practice, do the rehearsing, so that when it reaches that day, you'll be ready to do the speech, or to give the speech without any fear. So that is our question 5. Thank you. See you in our next question.